office in Thunder Bay. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Qasim Sadiq. I am the project co-lead for the Northern Road Link on behalf of Martin Falls First Nation. And we've come together today to provide an update on the project. So we've got a short presentation on the project itself to talk about what stage the project is at and what to expect in terms of next steps. And then, we've had some good conversations in the room here today. We'll continue to have those conversations after the presentation as well. And those of you joining us online, if you have any questions, we will share our contact information at the end of the presentation. So please feel free to get in touch with us as well. With that, I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Lindsay McBride and Ange Brooks, to walk us through the update presentation.
Thanks, Qasim. Okay, so the first slide, we have a little bit of introduction and background on the project. It's a proposed all-season road in Northern Ontario on Treaty 9 land. It will connect the Ring of Fire mineral deposits to the all-season highway network via the proposed Martin Falls Community Access Road. It'll provide an opportunity for Webequie First Nation to connect to the all-season highway network as well. The project is subject to both the provincial and federal Environmental Assessment Act. The proponents of the project are Martin Falls First Nation and Webequie First Nation. Both are remote communities that do not have all-season road access. There's been numerous historical studies on a road to the Ring of Fire, and in 2020, Martin Falls, Webequie, and Ontario agreed to work together, and the communities would conduct a provincial environmental assessment for the road funded by the province. So this map shows the three proposed road projects in the region and how they connect together. At the north, you have the Webequie Supply Road in red, and at the south, you have the Martin Falls Community Access Road in purple, and the Northern Road Link in the middle. So the Webequie Supply Road will connect Webequie First Nation to the Ring of Fire and allow for economic development through transport of goods and services from the Webequie Airport to the Ring of Fire. The Martin Falls Road will connect Martin Falls to the all-season road network, and then the Northern Road Link will link the two of them together. This slide shows the project team. So the communities of Martin Falls First Nation and Webequie First Nation are leading the assessment on a strategic level. It's led by the communities, the chief and council, and the working group. The working group consists of 2 members from each community. And then each community has a project co-lead that represents the project on their behalf, and there's Michael Fox and Qasim Sadiq. And then they've hired numerous technical experts, Atkins Realis, which is formerly SNC-Lavalin, as well as numerous other subcontractors to conduct the various studies and engineering design. So the project is an all-season multi-use gravel road. It will range from 117 to 164 kilometers in length, depending on the corridor chosen. It'll have a 100-meter right-of-way, numerous water course crossings, the largest of which is a crossing of the Attawapiskat River, which could be around 200 meters long. And there'll be numerous temporary and permanent ancillary infrastructure. So one of the challenges of this project will be constructing a road through peatlands. It's complex from both an engineering and an environmental perspective. There's risks that you disrupt the groundwater flow in the peatlands and dam it off and destroy some of the peatland. So we're looking at other projects that have also constructed through peatlands to kind of see how they've done it, such as the East Side Road in Manitoba. Right now it's looking like one of the methods would be to lay down geotextile over the peat and then overlay it with blast rock, and then put the road over top that so that the water can flow beneath the road. Right now we're looking at various corridors to to construct the road. Right now, we've divided it into segments so that the segments are not dependent on each other. There's 12 corridor segments right now. There might be a few more needed to kind of make the connections between, but yeah, about 12 corridor segments. Each corridor is 2 kilometers wide to allow for routing around constraints within the corridor. And at the bottom there, you can see in purple, we're looking at either segment A1 or A2, and that'll be dependent on the route that the MF car project goes with, because we'll have to connect to it. So this shows, here you can see there's like a heat map showing how we picked the alternative corridors in the first place. It was largely based on terrain, as well as known biological and cultural constraints. So you can see that green is good and red is bad. Red is water. So you can see there's not a lot of green there. A lot of the green areas are where it follows the esker. But we have JDMA, our subcontractor, did a lot of mapping of the terrain and trying to pick, some of the higher areas where we could potentially build the road. But now we're just kicking off an alternatives assessment where we're going to kind of compare the advantages and disadvantages of the engineering criteria, as well as the biological and water and all the different environmental components. So there's more information on a fact sheet at the front there on how we're going to conduct the alternatives assessment, and we are looking for feedback on it right now. This shows the alternative crossings of the Attawapaskat River. Right now we're looking at 3 potential crossings, 1 on the east and 2 on the west. And we originally had 1 on the west, and then it was identified that there's rapids there, which are potential sturgeon spawning habitat. So we're looking at moving that west crossing slightly more to the east, away from those rapids. This map shows the provincial regulatory process. The process is divided into a planning phase and an assessment phase. So we successfully completed the planning phase. We have an approved terms of reference with conditions from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. During the planning phase, we received and responded to over 1,000 comments from stakeholders on the plan, and we made changes to the plan based on those comments and recommendations and concerns. This is the federal environmental assessment process. It also has a planning and an assessment phase. The phase we're in right now is called the impact statement phase, and that's when the proponent does all their studies and then eventually submits an impact assessment. And then the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada will conduct their own impact assessment based on our reports. This shows the current timeline, which it may be subject to change, but you can see it's quite lengthy. We started baseline studies back in 2021, and they are ongoing. So we're looking at doing our alternatives assessment, and then completing the design of the project and doing the effects assessment on the project. Hoping to submit the environmental assessment report / impact statement in 2027 and receive the regulatory decisions in 2028. So an environmental assessment is a process to predict, evaluate, and mitigate potential environmental effects of a project. It supports planning and decision making, and it includes engagement with rights holders and stakeholders to inform the process. So it's a process where we conduct baseline studies, put together our project description, project design, and then assess environment project interactions and effects, and identify mitigations, as well as residual and cumulative effects. And then we also make numerous commitments to conduct mitigations, as well as follow-up and adaptive management plans. So we have a pretty in-depth consultation and engagement program right now, which includes consultation and engagement with 22 communities. We have a memorandum of understanding with the province, which delegates certain aspects of consultation to the proponent. All consultation is documented into a record of consultation using software called Praxis, and we're required to submit regular consultation reports to the regulator. The purpose of consultation is to promote two-way communication. We want to present information, but we also want to receive information. And we want to use that information to identify and assess issues and concerns related to the project and find ways to mitigate through them. So this slide here shows some of the consultation and engagement principles. We want consultation to be meaningful, transparent, inclusive and accessible, flexible and collaborative. Martin Falls and Webequie are committed to carrying out a thorough and meaningful consultation and engagement process for the project in a respectful manner that reflects Indigenous culture and traditions. And on the left, it just shows some of the methods we're using to conduct our consultation through open houses such as this, as well as community meetings and workshops and newsletters, fact sheets. We have a website, Instagram page, Facebook page, X account. And yeah, and I'm going to pass it over to Ange Brooks to go through the second half of the presentation.
All right, well, part of the project, we have a fairly robust Indigenous participation plan, or program. It includes everything from employing community members when we're going out doing some of our field studies. And we use numerous Indigenous subcontractors. We've got Thay Media. We had a company called Origin who produced a number of virtual reality experiences. And in addition, we frequently rent homes in Webequie and other communities when we're up doing various meetings. In the previous photo, you saw a wolverine sitting there on a wooden structure. We had an Indigenous company build those structures for us. Next slide. IK is a very important part of this project. That's Indigenous knowledge. It's so that we can have this information to, like, in addition to the Western scientific methods that we're using to collect other baseline data, and we want to integrate it all because who knows this land better than the actual First Nation community. So we're right now working with all of the communities in the area trying to get as much IK data as we can so that we can integrate it into the EA so that it becomes a more fulsome document. Valued components. So valued components are components of the environment that are important and sensitive to change. They're also of value for cultural and traditional purposes and are likely to interact with the project. It's a really technical definition, but they all fall under these 6 main umbrellas. So we have Aboriginal treaty rights and interests, biology, the physical environment, human health, socioeconomic and cultural and heritage resources. Aboriginal treaty rights and interests, we are also doing these studies as part of this project. It's a 2-phased Indigenous knowledge program, like I talked about the slide before, collecting IK data, and then also completing project-specific studies to report on the IK, cultural values and Indigenous rights and interests. Recently, the project team has sent out a memo inviting feedback from the communities on our preliminary local regional study areas for the A-tree assessment. So the next few slides are just giving a little bit more detail about the actual valued components, which are also outlined on the boards behind everybody. Under the physical environment heading, we have climate change, noise studies, air, groundwater, surface water. Biology, it covers off all sorts of things, the fish, the wildlife, species at risk. This is where we'll be covering off the caribou collaring that I'm going to talk about in a second, our wolverine occupancy study, waterfowl migration surveys that we've done, all sorts of vegetation surveys, ARU, we have acoustic recording units out for birds and for bats, And we also have a lot of camera traps out as well. So this is just a little bit about our caribou collaring program. We collared the caribou a couple of winters ago, I want to say. I can't remember the exact date. We did 14 females. When they were captured with a specialized team with a net gunner in a helicopter. And once we had our team on the ground, they collected hair samples, blood samples. They looked at the general health of the caribou, and then we fitted them, all of them, with a collar. And I know some people are a little bit sensitive about the caribou collars, but I've handled them before, and they're actually quite light compared to the size of the caribou. It's almost equivalent to a dog wearing a collar. It doesn't impede any of their various daily activities that they go on about. The collars will automatically pop off after 3 years, and they've got a GPS sensor on them, and we can track them in real time. So we can go to the website and see where any of our caribou are at any time of the day. Under the socioeconomic studies, we have data collection for local and regional economies, community services, infrastructure, and most of this data will be collected through community-focused surveys. Cultural and heritage resources, that's archaeology, and cultural heritage. The stage 1 is a desktop. If necessary, we'll continue on with a stage 2. Under the human health studies, it's a primary data collection. Most of this is done through Country Foods. We ask community members for various samples from waterfowl, from mammals, and berries, and fish. And we take those samples and submit them to a lab, and they undergo a bunch of analysis for different parameters. We also review the results of these studies in conjunction with the air and noise, the surface water, and groundwater to see how everything is interacting. So after we submitted the terms of reference and the project description, we had a lot of comments. Like Lindsay said, we had over 1,000 comments come in for these documents. And we just summarized a few of the key concerns that came out of these comments. Some of them were directed at us to help ensure that we have adequate Indigenous consultation and participation, and that we incorporate IK into the baseline studies that we're doing, and also to minimize impacts to Aboriginal treaty rights and interests. Under the cumulative effects banner, we've also had a lot of key concern. People are worried about what's going to happen if the road goes in and there's industrial development in the Ring of Fire area, and as well as other effects from other road projects, Wabakoi Supply Road and the Martin Falls Community Access Road. We had a lot of concerns voiced when it came to the environment. These are just a few of them. People are worried about building on the esker because it's important caribou habitat, and we've heard also that it's an important moose movement area. The peatlands, a lot of the communities have told us that they consider these their breathing lands, and we're cognizant of those concerns. And people are also worried about the crossing of the Attawapiskat River and other watercourses because of the possibility of sedimentation and what happens when there's construction going on and then afterwards, and access into areas from, people who might be using the road. Another thing that Lindsay sort of alluded to was through the terms of reference and the project description, we had a lot of commitments and monitoring that we had to, commit to. So these commitments relate to all project activities from construction, operation and maintenance, the mitigation measures, consultation engagement, and compliance monitoring. And basically the monitoring is done so that we will know if additional action is needed in order to meet these project commitments. While there will be a lot of monitoring obviously done during the construction phase, much of the monitoring takes place post-construction, and that's all based on the permitting requirements. But I know right now we're just talking about the EA phase itself, but we are looking towards the future as well. And I think that's the last slide. And these are all the ways you can contact us if you would like more information and come and talk to any of us on the team. And Kasim, do you want to say any final words?
Thanks, Ange. Just a quick reminder that, just a quick reminder that we are around for another sort of half an hour or so. If you've got any questions or comments, please find one of us around. Most of us have badges on us if you have any questions or comments and feedback on the project. But this isn't it. This is a continuing conversation. Our contact information is available on the website. If you have an interest in following up on anything that comes to mind after the event, please feel free to get in touch with us. We're available to meet virtually, in person, whatever works. Okay? Thank you so much.